There's an email sitting in your drafts folder. You opened that email exactly 6 times. You read every sentence carefully, and each time you read it, you changed one line. There was nothing wrong with the first version. There was just an uncomfortable feeling inside you that it wasn't quite good enough to send yet. Not because the first version was wrong, because it wasn't precise enough. You added a bit of context, then a clarification, then another sentence to make sure the tone wouldn't be misunderstood. Then you deleted 2 of those sentences. Then you added 1 of them back, and eventually you sent it. They read it in 11 seconds. During those 11 seconds, you were watching their faces, looking for any sign that something might have been misunderstood. You were searching for even the smallest signal. Psychology doesn't call that insecurity. It calls it something else entirely. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your brain does this, what that feeling inside you actually means. You'll also understand why trying to stop it usually makes things worse. And you'll realize that the people who told you to just keep it simple were actually working with incomplete data.
If you're ready, type message in the comments and let's begin.
Neuroscience has identified 5 distinct patterns in people whose brains are wired for precision in communication. These are not people who talk too much. They're not people pleasers either. They are people running a fundamentally different verification system before they speak. And most people don't even know that such a system exists. By the time we reach the final pattern, you'll understand why this started, why it has followed you into every relationship and every room, and why the word insecurity was never the correct diagnosis. That label never described you.
It describes someone who didn't understand your architecture.
Let's start with the first pattern. You could call it the gap scanner. Tuesday afternoon, a conference room. You're explaining a project. In the middle of your sentence, someone's eyes drift toward their phone. Your brain notices it before you even finish speaking. You don't stop talking, but internally, your mind branches. Your throat tightens slightly. You start constructing a second explanation in real time, a backup version in case the first one doesn't land. And maybe you add a sentence to your presentation, one you never planned, even though you spent hours preparing it. Psychologists call this ambiguity intolerance, and most people have no idea how deeply it runs. Your brain learned early that communication gaps are dangerous, not socially uncomfortable, dangerous. So it developed a protocol. Fill every possible gap before it becomes a problem. Most people speak and then see what breaks. You pre-repair. Before the words even leave your mouth, your brain is already running failure analysis.
That isn't weakness. That's a nervous system that learned to treat unclear information as a threat signal.
The shame you attach to it, that came from people who didn't have that protocol. People who assumed their baseline was the only baseline.
But the scanner doesn't stop there.
Because what it's actually protecting you from runs much deeper. And most people don't even notice it happening. Pattern 2.
This is what we call transmission anxiety.
You're nearing the end of what you're saying. Even before you speak your final sentence, that familiar feeling returns. Eventually, you finish speaking. No one has responded yet. That small window, 2, maybe 3 seconds, and your mind starts running a silent audit. Did they understand the actual meaning or just the surface words? Did the emphasis land in the right place? Was the qualifier clear enough? Most people never experience this window. They speak, they wait, they move on. They think only about what they said, not about the effect it might have on the other person. Your brain doesn't move on. It holds the transmission open and waits for confirmation. The reason is this. A region of your brain called the left inferior frontal gyrus, responsible for language precision, shows elevated activity during and after speech in individuals with high verbal processing ability.
In other words, you're not just producing language.
At the same time, you're monitoring it, testing it against multiple interpretations, and flagging anything that could be misread. That's why you often add one more sentence after you thought you were finished, one more clarification. The monitoring system flags a possible gap. The gap-filling protocol activates. The sentence appears, but that's only the beginning.
Because your brain does something even more complex than that.
This isn't insecurity about yourself. It's precision anxiety about the signal itself. You're not afraid of being judged. You're afraid the message got corrupted in transit. The people who told you to be more concise were optimizing for speed. You were optimizing for accuracy.
Those are not the same goal.
Sometimes you don't even do this while speaking. You do it before sending the message. You write a sentence. Then you delete it.
Then you write another version.
Because your brain has already moved to the next stage. This is what we call the pre-mortem loop. Before you send the message, before you make the request, before you say the thing in the meeting, your brain runs a simulation. Not one simulation, several. Version 1, you say it directly. It sounds aggressive. Version 2, you soften it. Now it's ambiguous. Version 3, you add context. Now it's too long. Version 4, you strip it back. Now the qualifier that prevents the misread is gone. You cycle through these versions in seconds, sometimes before writing the message, sometimes after writing it, and sometimes even after sending it. And the version you finally send is never the cleanest one. It's the one that survived the most failure scenarios. Research on counterfactual thinking, the brain's simulation of alternative outcomes, shows that high-precision communicators run significantly more pre-transmission simulations than average. This isn't rumination, it's risk modeling. Your brain is running a pre-mortem analysis on language before the language even exists. There's a cost to that. It takes longer. It exhausts you. And when someone says, "You're overthinking this," they aren't completely wrong about the process, but they are wrong about the cause. You weren't taught to communicate this way. You were built to. There's a difference. And here's the interesting part. The clearest version is usually the one you never send. Have you noticed something? Sometimes when you speak, you're not just speaking to the person in front of you. It's as if there's someone else in the room, not someone listening, someone who might hear it later. You're not just explaining to the person in front of you, you're explaining to an imagined third observer, a version of the conversation that could be taken out of context, misremembered, or repeated to someone who wasn't there. That's why your sentences sound strangely complete. Each one stands on its own. Each one is insured against being removed from its context. Because you're not speaking only for the moment, you're speaking for the record. Because somewhere deep down, you've always known this. The right sentence, in the wrong mouth, becomes a completely different sentence. Cognitive linguistics calls this high context dependency awareness, a heightened sensitivity to how language behaves outside its original environment. Your brain doesn't just model the person in front of you, it models every possible future listener for what you're about to say. Most people have a conversational radius of 1, just the person in front of them. Yours extends further. You run the conversation through multiple interpretive lenses simultaneously. The person in front of you, the person they might tell, and the version of you that might be quoted without the surrounding context. That's not paranoia. That's multi-channel signal processing. And the framework that called this over-explaining was only measuring the output. It never looked at the architecture producing it. And now we come to the mechanism that ties all of this together. This is what we call the calibration tax. Every conversation costs you more than it costs most people, because you're running multiple mental processes during the same interaction. Most people just talk. You analyze at the same time. Gap scanning, transmission monitoring, pre-mortem simulation, witness modeling, all of it simultaneously, in real time. The result is what neuroscientists call cognitive load asymmetry. You are performing significantly more computational work per social interaction than the average communicator. The fatigue is real. The delay before responding is real. The need to mentally recap after conversations is real. But none of that means you're bad at communication. It means you're running precision software on hardware that was benchmarked for something simpler. Taxes exist for a reason. You pay them because something matters. The calibration tax exists because accuracy matters to you. Because being understood, truly understood, is non-negotiable for your system. This isn't a flaw, it's a specification. If you've been paying this tax your whole life, drop a money emoji in the comments. None of these patterns exist in isolation. The gap scanner, transmission anxiety, the pre-mortem loop, the witness problem, the calibration tax. They are all outputs of the same architecture, a nervous system calibrated for precision in a world optimized for speed. Most people communicate to transfer information. You communicate to transfer meaning. Those are not the same goal. And every system you've moved through, school, workplaces, relationships, was built around the first goal, not the second. That's where the shame came from, not from your brain, from the gap between what your system was built to do and what the environment rewarded. You weren't over-explaining. You were precision communicating in low-resolution environments. The label was wrong, the framework was wrong, and the measuring stick was wrong. And yet you spent years trying to fix a problem that was never yours to fix. If you recognized yourself in any of these patterns, here's the truth. You were never bad at communicating. You were using a high-resolution system in environments that couldn't process that resolution. The framework that made you feel like too much was never designed for how you work. You don't have to keep shrinking your signal to fit the bandwidth of people who weren't built to receive it. If this video gave a name to something you've been carrying for a long time, leave a comment. Write it below. Not for the algorithm, but because you finally gave a name to something you've been defending for years.